So we're going to solve for x by factoring. So on this first one, you have to make sure if you're doing a quadratic, you have to set the equation equal to 0 before you start. So I'll do that by adding 5x to both sides. Then I get x squared minus 4x equals 0. So now the equation's set equal to 0. I can see there's a greatest common factor. They both have x in common, so I can pull out an x, and I can write it as x times x minus 4. Then to get my answer, I'm like, well, what would I have to make x to make this part in here 0? And the number that I'd put in there would be 4. So if x equals 4, and then also what number would I have to put just right here to make x equals 0? That would just be, or to make this part 0 would just be 0. So these are my two answers. Looking here, I need to set it equal to 0, so minus 2, x squared minus 7x minus 18 equals 0. I'm going to set up my box and circle. We've been working with that. X squared minus 7x minus 18. If you need help with that, go take a look at the first quadratics review. This is the second one. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 18, but add to negative 7. And I believe that'll be negative 9 and 2. So I think this will be negative 9x and 2x. To get x squared, be x times x. And then x times negative 9 would give me negative 9x. And then x times positive 2 would give me 2x. And then 2 times negative 9 gives me negative 18. So in here, I'm going to say x minus 9 times x plus 2 equals 0. And then my two answers are going to be x equals 9, and the other is going to be x equals negative 2. So these are my two answers. All right, this next one, we're going to finish it by factoring. This right here is called difference of squares. So I can factor that out and rewrite it like x plus 2, x minus 2. My two answers will be easy to find. One is going to be when x is equal to negative 2, and the other one's going to be when x is equal to positive 2. Number 4, oops. So in here I'm going to do minus 2x to get this equal to 0. Get x squared minus 100 equals 0. Again, this is a difference of squares problem. Difference of squares. So this will be x plus 10, x minus 10 equals 0. Then my answers would be x equals negative 10, and the other one would be x equals positive 10. Discriminant, that's the part that goes underneath the square root in the quadratic formula. It's just b squared minus 4ac. So if I want to figure out what the discriminant is for this one, I have to know that this is a, this is b, and this is c. So I'm going to plug that in. It'll be 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times 4. This will be 4 minus 4 times 3 is 12 times 4 is 48. So 4 minus 48 is negative 44. So there's my answer there. Taking a look at number 6, discriminant again, b squared minus 4ac. Here's a, here's b, and here's c. So we got negative 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 6. It'll be 4 minus, and then 4 times 3 is 12. 12 times negative 6 is negative 72. So this was the same as 4 plus 72, which is 76 positive. Looking at the discriminant here for number 7, b squared minus 4ac, a, b, c. got negative 2 squared minus 4 times negative 7 times 6. So it'll be 4 minus 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. Negative 28 times 6, I believe, is negative 168. So this will be 172 positive. Take a look at number 8. So solve for the simplest form using the quadratic. Going to have to add 30x to both sides. And I get 3x squared plus 30x plus 66 equals 0. Divide each thing by 3 because they're all divisible by 3 to make it simpler. So I pull a 3 out front. I get x squared plus 10x plus 22 equals 0. Then I'm just going to do quadratic formula on this part. Quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Good little nugget for the note sheet. Taking a look here, I'm going to have negative 10 plus or minus square root of 10 squared minus 4 times 1 times 22 all over 2 times 1, which is just 2. So we get negative 10 plus or minus. This will be 100 minus 88, which is 12. And taking a look here, I know 12, I can rewrite that. So I'm going to write it as negative 10 plus or minus square root of 4 times the square root of 3 is 12 over 2. Negative 10 plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3 over 2. All of these things are divisible by 2. So my final answer is going to be negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 3. I want to rewrite this in simplest form. Again, you got to set it equal to 0, so minus 4x on both sides. I get x squared minus 4x plus 76 equals 0. Negative 4 is positive 4, plus or minus. Negative 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 76 all over 2. This is 4 plus or minus, and I can put this in a calculator if I want. I don't have to do this. I would recommend if you do put it in a calculator to put parentheses around the whole top and then just put a plus sign the first time and then just delete it and then put a minus sign for the second answer. So I'm going to get 16 minus 4 times 76 would be 4 times 70 is 280, 304 over 2. If you do put it in a calculator, it'll say error. So I didn't think about that. So it's going to be 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 288 over 2. So I had to think about what multiplies up to 288. And I didn't know for sure, but I broke it down a little bit. I know that 16 times 18 was one that I found. And then times negative 1. That'll give me negative 288 divided by 2. I do 4 plus or minus. Square root of 16 is just 4. Square root of 18, I could write it as the square root of 9 times the square root of 3. And then the square root of negative 1 is just I. That's that imaginary number. And then 2 on the bottom. Square root of 9 is really just the number 3. So cleaning it up a little bit more, I got 4 plus or minus 4 times 3, which is 12, times the square root of 3i over 2. All three of these parts are divisible by 2, so it'll be 2 plus or minus 6 times the square root of 3i. Solve for the roots. Minus 4x to get it equal to 0. And I'm going to plug it in the quadratic formula. 4 plus or minus negative negative 4 is 4. Square root of negative 4 in parentheses squared minus 4 times 4 times negative 3 all over 2 times 8 or 2 times 4, which is 8. So 4 plus or minus square root of 16 minus 4 times 4 is 16 times 8 is negative 48 over 8. This will turn into 4 plus or minus the square root of 64 over 8. Square root of 64 is just 8 itself. So square root is gone. All of these pieces are divisible by 2, or by 4, sorry. So I get 1 plus or minus 2 over 2. So your answers are going to be 1 plus 2, which is 3 divided by 2. And the other answer is going to be 1 minus 2, which is negative 1 divided by 2. So these will be my two answers. X is equal to this, and X is equal to that. Moving along here, do number 11. So clean that up here really fast. Solve this equation to the nearest 10th. So I get 2, or I'm going to do quadratic formula. So negative 15 would be B, this would be A, this would be C. So I'm going to get negative negative 15, which is 15, plus or minus negative 15 squared minus 4 times 2 times 8 all over 2 times 2, which would be 4. But make it just a little bit cleaner. You could type this in a calculator is what I'm going to do here, but just going to show you guys what this would be. And 225 minus 64 is 161. And they want it to the nearest 10th, so I'm just going to use Desmos. So here I go with Desmos. And I'm going to do parentheses on top and do 15 plus the square root of 161. And I'm going to bump over here and close up the parenthesis there, divided by 8. So one of my answers is 3.461, but to the nearest 10th would be 3.5. So I'm going to bounce right back. And I'm going to say one of my answers would be, oh, it's divided by 4. Whoops. Made a mistake. Got to change that to a, did I do that right? Yeah, 4, sorry. Be 6.9, sorry. So one of my answers is 6.9. And then the other one is going to be when I change the plus to a minus. And I get negative 0.57 or negative 0.6 to the nearest 10th. All right. Number 12, also want to solve that one. Easier for me to just, or make sure it's equal to 0. So 3x squared minus 4x minus 17 equals 0. Now I can use quadratic formula. I use quadratic formula here. I'm just going to do 4 plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared, which is positive 16, minus 4 times 3 times 12, 4 times 3 times negative 17, all over 2 times 3, which is 6. And I am just going to put this in Desmos straight up. There's no reason for me to do that when I just need the decimal, as long as I wrote it down. So I'm going to go back to Desmos and parentheses on top, 4 plus the square root of what was it? I'm going to look back. 16 minus 4 times 3 times 17. Times 3 times negative 17. Let's bump outside here. And then divided by 2 times a, which is 6. So one of my answers is 3.13 or 3.1. So one of my answers is going to be x equals 3.1. And then the other one, I go back to Desmos, and I change that plus to a minus, and I get negative 1.8. That should be what's on the answer key. Moving along here, solve this to the nearest 10th. Again, gotta set it equal to 0. X squared plus 12x plus 13 equals 0. So I got negative 12 plus or minus 12 squared is 144 minus 4 times 1 times 13. 4 times 13 is 50. 4 times 13 is 42. 4 times 40. No, it's 52. I was right. Whoops. Doing stuff in my head here. 2. So I get negative 12 plus or minus, this would be 94 minus 2. Square root of 92 over 2. Yeah, my answers, I'm just going to plug it in. So here we go. Oops. We got parentheses negative 12 plus square root of 92. Oops. And then we'll bump over, close up that parenthesis, divided by 2. And then the other one, so I just copy this. I'll just do it right below it. I'll do negative 12 minus square root of 92 divided by 2. So I got negative 1.2 and negative 10.8. All right. And this one says a company sells widgets. The amount of profit made by the company is related to the selling price of each widget, X given by the equation. Using the equation, find out the maximum amount of profit the company can make to the nearest dollar. So, a couple key things that I want to make sure that I understand. Maximum is code for the vertex, but the vertex has two pieces in it. The X is going to be talking about the selling price. So this is the price, and then Y is going to be the profit. Now, I can actually find out the X because I have a formula to find the X of the vertex. It's just negative B over 2A. So this is going to help me get to the profit answer, but I can't do it right away. So the B number right here is 600, and the A number is negative 6. And that's all I need for this formula. So this will be negative 600 over 2 times negative 6. When I get my answer, it's going to be 50. So the price that I should charge is $50, but I want to know how much profit do I make if I charge 50. So to figure that answer out, I just replace X with the number 50. So I'm taking this original equation and I'm just replacing X with 50. And once I do that, I have to plug that into Desmos. and then get the answer. So here I go. So I got negative, oops, I always put parentheses on the top. Sorry, -6. I was right, -6 times 50 squared. There we go. Never mind. Don't need parentheses. -6 times 50. Then I have to square it, plus 600 times 50 minus 5726. I get 9,274. So the max amount of profit that I could make would be $9,274. All right. Next problem says a rocket is launched from a tower. The height of the rocket, y in feet, is related to the time, which is x in seconds. So I know it says using the equation, find the time that the rocket will hit the ground. And the height of the ground I know would be 0 because that means it's on the ground. So in order to do this, I'm not going to be looking for the maximum or the minimum. I'm looking for when it hits the ground or when the height is 0. So this is set up to 0. This means I need to use the quadratic formula, which we've done, but I'm just doing it in a word problem. So here's my B, here's my A, and here's my C. So I'm going to run the quadratic formula and let the calculator do the work. So this is going to be -272 plus or minus the square root of 272 squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2 times -16. And I'm just going to let the calculator figure this one out. I should just do it on my, I think I can do it right here. So I got parentheses -272, oops, plus square root of 272 squared minus 4 times -16 times 110. Bump outside here, close up the top, divided by 2 times -16. So I get this answer, I get -0.39, which you can't really have negative time. So that means that answer is going to get rejected. But if I put a minus in here, I get 17.39 seconds. So if I'm looking at this with common sense, yeah, I get -0.39. That answer, really, I can't use it because it doesn't make sense. You can't have negative seconds, so that's why this one doesn't work. And the other answer is 17.39 or 17.4 if I round to 2 decimal places. So 17.40 seconds. So this is how long it's going to take until the rocket hits the ground. Number 16 says a rocket is launched from a tower. The height of the rocket in feet is related to it. This time, using the equation, find the maximum height, which is code for the vertex. So I want to figure out when it reaches the maximum height. And when it does, find out what is it. So negative b over 2a will give me the x part. So this is going to be -246 over 2 times -16. And once I figure that out, it's going to be some weird decimal. I get 7.685 seconds. So 7.6875 seconds. So to figure out the answer, I have to plug it in for x. So I'm going to plug this number in for x. So I'm going to get negative 16 times 7.6875 squared plus 246 times 7.6875 plus 100. And this is equal to y, or the maximum height. Got to put it in a calculator. I don't have another choice. It's too hard. So I got negative 16 times 7.6875. Then I got to remember to square it. And, oops, that's 246 plus 100. Okay. So then, oops. So plus 46, 7.6875 plus 100. And that's 1,045.5625. But it says to the nearest tenth, so 1,045.56 or 0.6 will be good. If we did it to the nearest tenth. So 0.6. Oops, come on. And then this is in feet. All right. Next question says a rocket is launched from a tower. The height of the rocket is related to the time after launch, x seconds, by the given equation. Using this equation, find out the time. So they're looking for the x at which the rocket will reach its max. So this is the vertex, but I want the x portion of it. I don't need this part. I just need what this is, and this is negative b over 2a. So in this case, it's going to be negative 239 over 2 times negative 16. And then this will give me the amount of time in seconds when it reaches its max. So in here, negative 239 divided by 2 times negative 16. So I get 7.46875. So it said hundredth of a second, that's 2 decimal places. So this would really be 7.47 seconds. All right, let's go take a look at number 18. It says factor completely. So these are all going to be box and circles again. I'm going to take a look here. It does have a 5 in it. I know that makes people nervous, but the idea is exactly the same. So for the top, it multiplies to a times c. So 5 times 3 is 15. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 15, but they need to add to 16. So the two numbers that I know that would do that would be 1 and 15. So in one of the boxes I put 15x, and the other one I put 1x, or I could just put x. And then, so this will be the answer, I'll do it in pink. So 5x times x gives you 5x squared. Well, 5x times positive 3 would give me 15x. And then 1x times positive 1 would give me 1x. So my answer would be x plus 3 and then 5x plus 1. Taking a look here. 2x squared plus 7x. Sorry, I gotta do that. Minus 9. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to 2 times negative 9, which is negative 18, and adds to the middle number of 7, or the B number. Two numbers that would do that, I think, would be 9 and 2. But one of them has to be negative, which would be the 2. So negative 2x here, positive 9x here. And I'm going to put the 2x across from the negative 2x, because 2x times negative 1. And this will be x, because x times 2x gives you 2x squared. And then x times positive 9 would give you 9x. Negative 1 times positive 9 gives you negative 9. So here you go, 2x plus 9, and then x minus 1. Factor completely again. Three times 4 is 12. So it has to multiply to 12, has to add to negative 13. I think numbers 12 and 1 would work, but they both have to be negative. So I put negative 12x and negative 1x. And then on here, put the 3x across from the negative 12, because 3x times negative 4 works. And 3x times x gives you 3x squared. And then regular x times negative 1 gives you a negative 1x. And then negative times a negative gives a positive here for two n numbers. So I get 3x minus 1, and then x minus 4. It says rewrite the quadratic in standard form. So I have to multiply some stuff out. Standard form is when it looks like ax squared plus bx plus c. So in this case, I'm going to take this negative 4, leave it right here, and then I'm going to do this part a little bit differently. So I'm going to use the box, but the opposite way. So I know x minus 1 squared is really x minus 1 times x minus 1. I'm just going to deal with this part. I'll put it in the blue here. And then at the end, I'll have to do minus 3. So x minus 1 times x minus 1, well, x times x is x squared. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. X times negative 1 is negative 1x. And then negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. So I'm going to say you have to do negative 4. And then I'm just going to write all this stuff in the middle, but combine the like terms. So that's minus 2x plus 1. And I still have this minus 3. Now I have this 4 with, it's a times, I'm going to have to distribute it in. So negative 4 times x squared is negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times negative 2x is positive 8x. And negative 4 times 1 is negative 4. And then we have to minus 3. And then for the grand finale here, we're just going to write y equals negative 4x squared plus 8x. Negative 4 and negative 3 together is minus 7. So I just changed it from vertex form to standard form. Got another one, can do the same thing. I'm going to take the negative 5, stick it up front, then do the middle part, and then plus 7 at the end. So I'll make a little box and then try to go backwards. So this will be x plus 1 times x plus 1. So you get x squared plus 1x, and 1 times 1 is 1. So if I write this out, I got negative 5, and then the plus 7, and then in here, this will be x squared. 1x and 1x together is positive 2x, and then plus 1. Then I'm going to distribute the negative 5 in. So negative 5 times x squared is negative 5x squared. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. And then negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. So I've got to add the 7. So final answer here, y equals negative 5x squared minus 10x, and then negative 5 and 7 to go together to make 2. This problem says which equation best matches the graph shown below. First of all, I know that the graph is smiling or pointing up. So I know the A number, it has to be a positive number. So all of these are A numbers, but in these two, they're negative. So it can't be A or B. Now in C and D, the A number is positive 0.4, so it could be one of those. So this is in factored form. I look right here at where the x-intercepts are. One's at 2 and one is at 5. So this has to be x minus 2 and then x minus 5. I'm going to take a look here. This one has a plus, so this one's out. So this has to be the answer. And then I'll take a look at 24. I know it's smiling, it's facing up because of the shape. So I know the A numbers that are negative are out. Looking for the two spots here. This is 7 and this is at 9. So it's got to be x minus 7 and x minus 9. This one has pluses, so this one's out. So that should be the answer. This one's also smiling. The A number has to be positive, so these ones are out. And it's to the right here at 6 and 8, but they got to be the opposite, so it's going to be the minus, not the plus. Look at 26. This one is smiling. So all of these have a positive, except this is in vertex form. So I'm going to look at the vertex, and the vertex here is at negative 5, 4. So I know it has to be x plus 5. So this one's out, this one's out. And then the y coordinate stays the same, it's positive 4. So this one stays the same at positive 4. So it's got to be this one, and this one has a negative 4, so this one's out. Looking here at 27, they're all facing down, so that's why the A number has to be negative. I can't eliminate it there, but I can look at the vertex, and it is at negative 6, comma, negative 6. So I know that this has to be some A number that's negative, and then it's x plus 6, and then minus, or squared, and then minus 6. So the ones that have minus, those are out. And I'm looking for the plus 6, minus 6 one, which is right here. So this one's out. And then the last one's number 28. It is smiling, so the A number has to be positive. There is no A number, but really there is. On all of these, it's 1, but it's positive for each one of them. So now I'm looking at the vertex because it's in vertex form. This is at 5, comma, negative 6. So I'm looking for x minus 5 squared minus 6. So this one has plus, that one's out, plus 5, that's out. 2 minus 5s, but I'm looking for the one that has the negative 6 with it. So this one's out. All right, so that should take care of this one. Good luck. Remember to fill out your note sheet, put some stuff in there. You can use Google to look up some answers.